a very big bank in US having a total deposit of around $175 billion has gone for bankruptcy. It has impacted greatly in financial market, money market, capital market of all the countries in the world. Today, no country is in isolation. In today's deliberations, we'd like to discuss the major reason for such failure. Major reason. We are not going to discuss all the reasons. Major reason which is responsible for this bankruptcy. You are aware about the fact that the inflation is the major cause of interest hike. The interest rate is increased by the central banks with the object to restrict the money supply in the market and thereby to reduce the inflation. In other words, inflation and rate increase, they go side by side. Since there is a reasonably high rate of inflation in all the countries, including US, Europe, including our country, most of the central banks have preferred to increase the interest rate. Now, this rate hike directly impacts the financials of the banks. How it impacts, we are going to elaborate the matter with the help of mathematical calculation, which is very, very easy to understand. Rate increase impacts the value of the bond. As you know, all banks are required to subscribe the central government's bonds. In case of India, all banks are to compulsorily keep 18% of their term deposit in government securities, plus 4.5% they are to keep it with the Reserve Bank of India as CRR, and first one was SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio. Now, these bonds are always being kept by the bank in their balance sheet and obviously as an asset. Now, when the rate increases, the value of that bonds are reduced proportionately. The question is why? If there is a rate increase, normally you must have heard that banks are benefited because they charge the higher rate of interest to their lenders, to their borrowers. So they get additional revenue. But today you are just listening to the fact that if there is a rate increase, the value of their existing bonds, which are already there in their balance sheet, is reduced proportionately. Now, why? We are trying to explain this matter with the help of two examples. Suppose a bank purchased a security on 1st April 2020 for $1,000 and rate of interest was 1.5%. I repeat, it was purchased in 1st April 2020. Bond face value was $1,000 and rate of interest 1.5%. And it is a 10 years bond. That means it will be matured in the year 2030. Fine. After 3 years, the central bank has increased the rate on bond to 5.5%. But this is applicable only on new bonds, not the old ones. Now, if the old bond holders want to sell their old bond, will they get $100, $1,000? No. Why any person will purchase the old bond which is carrying only 1.5% interest rate? They will say, I will not buy your bond, I will buy the bond from the central bank. And it will carry interest rate of 5.5%. And the rate increased on 1st April 2023. So the old bondholder, they have to offer certain discount. You please buy my bond. Yes, it is carrying 1.5% and you are losing 4% interest for another 7 years. I understand that. And I want to sell this bond because I want liquidity. So the old bondholders, they have to offer discount. Now the question is, how much discount? For which you have to specifically refer our computations. Now, arithmetically, you can very well understand only 7 years are left. $1,000 bond, 4% is lost. That means $40 per year is lost. If any new bondholder wants to buy the old bond, because he will get 1.5%, whereas he is entitled for 5.5%. So loss is 4%. 4% of 1,000 is $40, and it will carry for another 7 years. So they are losing 280 rupees. Sorry, $280. But no, they will not ask for a discount of $280. You have to calculate the present value of $280 on the date of buying the bond, old bond, which is 1st April 2023. We have calculated the NPV value of 280 rupees, and if you calculate the net present value, it will be around 227.32. In other words, the new bondholder who will be willing to buy the bond, he will say, gentlemen, I am ready to buy your 1.5% bond, but please note that I will not pay 1,000. I am losing $227.31. So please give me a discount. So against $1,000 bond, which the old one purchased, he will get 772.69. In other words, the old bondholder has to offer 22.73% discount. Now you apply this in the case of banks. Banks are holding billions of dollars of government securities. I have already explained, even Indian banks are required to buy Government of India securities. Why? Government is the major borrower. Why? Because the country, our country has around 18 lakh crores deficit, which is known as fiscal deficit. And the central government gets this money by issuing bonds through Reserve Bank of India. And these bonds are purchased by whom? Mostly by the banks, provident fund institutions, LICs, etc. Now the question is that in our country there is a limit. But unfortunately or fortunately, in some other countries there is no limit. In case of the bank which has failed in US, they have put most of their funds in government securities, in treasury securities, because it is safe. There is no NPA. In our country, it is only restricted to 22.5%, 18% SLR, and 4.5% is CRR. Banks are not obliged to keep more than that. But in other countries, there is no such limit. So as a result, what happens? Whenever there is an interest rate hike, the net present value of the bond comes down. It's called bonds yields come down. And this value reduction has a direct bearing in the balance sheet because it is a loss on value. As a result, the profit and loss of the banks, the financials of the banks are impacted to a great extent. And that is exactly what happened in American bank. They took huge amount of deposits from the startups, but invested very little in the form of lending and kept the majority of the fund in the Fed's deposits. And as you know, the Fed has increased the rate, and probably on 22nd March, they are again going to increase the rate. And it has crossed more than 5%. So as a result, once the bond rate increases, its value comes down. It has an inverse relationship. It impacts all banks, but those who are prudent, they do not keep money in long-term bonds. You can buy 20 years bond, you can buy 40 years bond, you can buy bonds which are maturing in 2025 also. So there should be a correct mix. So if this mix is lost, and if you put your major fund in the long-term funds, you will have a major on the day of announcing the monetary policy decision. All the bank chairman and managing directors are present in RBI. They keenly watch the rate, and you will find its impact or reflection in the money market and capital market also, based on rate increase or rate reduce. Friends, this is our simple submissions in a layman's language. As usual, if you like our video, please subscribe it. It is meant for all sections of the people, including students, professors, teachers, and professionals. Thank you very much.